Welcome back, guys. How you doing? This is another video about my Jawa Type 05, which in the last video, which was over a year ago now, I cleaned the carb out to make it idle properly, and then I couldn't get it to set off in first gear. I've now found out why I couldn't get it to set off, and it was a completely stupid reason, so I'll be showing you what it's like riding it in a little while. Firstly, though, we're going to replace the front tyre and the fork gators and have a look at the gearbox oil, trying to diagnose the problem. I did try to push the axle out and it was stuck quite hard, so I thought rather than risk mushrooming the end of it by tapping it with a hammer, even with a block of wood, which does help with that, I thought I'd try and pull it out because there's a hole in the end and it's got to be for something, right? So we're trying it with a little mini screwdriver.
This seems to be working. One wheel. Brakes. They look like they could do with a bit extra meat on them, don't they? So I'm going to measure them. These tyres have got handy valve stem removers in them. So the first job is these gators. They've got quite an interesting fixing on them. They've got basically this split pin here that winds that in, like a sardine can pull tab thing. So you just have to unwind them and they come apart like that. Here's one I did earlier. There it is.
At this point, I had the bright idea of trying to push the gator down over the lugs on the bottom of the fork, which they weren't going to stretch enough. So in the end, I realised that I'd probably be better off just taking the fork leg apart, which is a hell of a lot easier. The fork legs literally unscrew in about 5 seconds, but then of course I'm faced with the fact that the old gator is now sort of stuck on the lug, so Rather than cut it off, I did manage to remove it like this, but it's just a complete waste of time, really. While the forks are apart, it's also a good idea to clean and inspect and re-grease them. They're not hydro forks, so it's not like there's any oil that can weep out or any oil seals to go bad, but it's nice to get any grit out of there and just replace the 50-odd-year-old grease.
And a hair. Right, let's try and get one of these back on then. Don't know if they'll work or not. Let's try and open this little end up slightly here without stabbing myself. That should do it, just a teeny bit. Can't see it, can you?
So I had the great idea of buying a large container of brake cleaner and then decanting it into this old window cleaner bottle so that I can pretend that I'm a proper mechanic with an Autosmart spray bottle like you see them use. However, the problem was that it seems to have melted the inside, so you can see the trigger doesn't return anymore. I'm having to return it manually with my fingers, and it doesn't actually spray out anymore, so it's a complete waste of time. If you're going to do this, then don't be a cheapskate like me, buy the proper stuff, eh? I don't think it particularly matters what grease you use. I'm using this EP2 general purpose stuff from the tractor shop purely because it was cheap. I think it was £1.80 for that whole tube because it's for a grease gun, and I just literally stick the paintbrush in it because my grease gun's too old to take cartridges. You have to pack it manually. In a previous video, I cleaned and re-greased some Puch Maxi forks, and on those they don't have gators like this. They've got like little rubber dust cover things. and I put too much grease on and managed to get grease behind the dust covers to the point where they kept popping off. So I do recommend being careful not to put too much grease on, and cleaning where the rubber parts actually meet, be it gators or dust caps, and the inside of the gator or dust cap where it's going to make contact, just so you get some grip, because it's quite annoying having to put them back on all the time. I didn't film myself changing the tyre, can't remember why, because it was a year or so ago now. So here's a very patronising before and after, like you've never seen a new tyre. I think the reason I didn't film the tyre change was because these old tyres can go one of two ways. These are, I believe, the original 1960s Barum tyres that would have come with it. And with old tyres, they either get really saggy and loose, or they're just really hard and difficult to get off. And I have a feeling I made a complete pig's ear of it and just junked the video. But I don't know, because I can't find it. So here's a very high-speed version of me putting the front end back together. At this point I realised I'd forgotten a spacer, so I've got to take the axle out a little bit, just on one side. Ta-da! Okay, let's drain the transmission fluid.
Not sure how much was supposed to be in there, but that looks a fair amount. That's more than I thought would be in there. It is quite thick and syrupy. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be. I'll have to consult the new stuff. It looks in better condition than I thought. I would say that that's had a little bit of moisture in it though. Don't know if you can see from there because of the sunlight reflecting. Yeah, it looks ever so slightly milky. That may not have been the cause of our problems though, I don't know. So I've ordered a fibre washer to replace the other one which was leaking, and it might be the cork inserts on the clutch, I don't know without going in there. But first we'll try it with new oil and cross our fingers. Here's the gear oil I'm going to replace it with. The new fibre washer hasn't arrived yet, but I'm just going to go ahead for now, and it'll leak a little bit and I can always change it out. I'm probably going to need to change it out when it's warm anyway to get the rest of the other stuff out. So this is EP80W90 gear oil. You can use engine oil as well, and the important bit is this, GL4. You can't use GL5 or above because they eat yellow metal, so any brass bushings or anything in there will be eaten by the gear oil, so you don't want that.
Okay, I can't put it off any longer, it's time to come clean. This that you're seeing at the moment is the footage from the end of the video where I sorted the carb out and made it idle properly. You'll notice I can't set off. I keep trying and stalling it, and that's why we've just looked at the gearbox oil and everything. Now, I'm not a trained mechanic. I know everything I know from just learning as I go along and watching other people do videos. And that's still no excuse for trying to start it in top gear every single time. I don't know why I went down every time. I went back and watched the videos. I thought I pulled the gear lever up a couple of times and tried starting it in that gear. But no, every single time I pressed down, which is top gear, third gear, and then was surprised, embarrassingly enough, when it fell flat on its face. So with that in mind, here's some footage of me actually riding it and still being terrible at gears.